Otherlands I consider like the metamorphosis of Borderlands Trio, which was really wonderful while it lasted. Um, but really, when that came to an end, Eric and I wanted to continue developing our thing, and
Mm.
which is we just have this very magnetic connection and like a deep amount of trust in each other that allows us to really stretch the time and the feel in sort of in any kind of direction with each other or sort of away from each other, and then like find each other in some other orbit somewhere else. Mm.
Yeah.
But the way I describe Eric's playing to people is it certainly involves magnetism. He feels like a like a force field to me. Like he generates so much uh gravitational pull and that just on his own, that I feel like any gesture I make just feels right with him.
Mm.
So it's very freeing in that sense because it feels like I can do no wrong. Um, and Yeah, and then so over time of doing a lot of like recordings and a lot of gigs and tours, that our rapport has developed. And then when we decided to bring Darius in, I remember the first gig, he was just like, "Oh, you guys," he was just like, "You guys are like on some like." He was so thrilled um to get to interact with the energy of what Eric and I
Yeah.
are developing, you know. And what, my response to him, I mean, it was wonderful to hear that from him and hear, his enthusiasm for collaborating with us. But I immediately heard how strong his rhythmic engagement is, and how focused his and clear his phrases are, his choices that he makes, like all the space he leaves, and then like the most tectonic event that he can create when he decides to enter with
Yeah.
this like fully formed
Yeah.
thing that he brings.
Yeah. No
And
hesitance. No, like,
yeah,
no, we can, no.
yeah, it's very deliberate. In fact, on the way home from I think our second gig, I remember him talking about, because I brought that up with him, and he said, I work on that with my students because like so many saxophonists, they think about the lines they're going to play and all this stuff, but they don't think about entrances.
Mm.
And he talked about Eric Dolphy and like how impactful it is when Eric Dolphy comes into the tune.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
event. And so that totally made sense to me, that because I feel that with him. So the other aspect is, Darius, like Eric and me, is in addition to like rhythmic and melodic and motivic stuff and sort of song form engagement, he's also very interested in just the sonic building blocks of the music, like sound itself and the texture. And
Yeah.
so we'll build entire pieces that either are completely reside within the space of color and texture and sound, or like it might start that way and it grows into some other area from that. But I love that, and I love that, for instance, as a drummer, I think Eric McPherson is rare in that he really hears things like he orchestrates the music. You know, he's not just like coming up with grooves and that stuff, which I mean, that if done well, that's great, and that like that can be enough.
Mm,
But but I love that I just can tell that he's hearing the whole spectrum
mm,
of possibilities, and he's thoughtful about how he engages in the music on that level. On he's composing and he's orchestrating,
mm,
and that's what everybody's doing. And the other thing that I'll say about Eric is that's also rare is his dynamic range. He's able to generate all manner of power and groove and magnetism at any dynamic,
mm,
which a lot of times drummers need to, in order to have that control and generate and really drive the band, they have to be at an upper dynamic, and what that does is that it flattens out the possibilities. You know, it pushes it covers up
mm.
a lot of the sonic range of the band, and it kind of like pushes people against the wall as far as what the options are for shaping the feel and shaping the music. So just I didn't explicitly say it up front, but just in as part of my introduction of the band and what we're doing is that we go into each performance with zero plan, and we sound checked and gotten as comfortable as possible on the stage, and but when we go up, we it's just about opening ourselves to each other and to everything as much as possible, and and continually falling into the moment more deeply, and being trying to be honest and and yeah, and real, and I find that so the music is spontaneously composed is another way that I like to say it, which means that it's not anything. It can be anything, and it's not any specific type of music. It's not a genre like and it's our music that we feel is right in the moment. And I will say that the question that you raise, and I think I understand well what you're getting at. I like to I like to have high expectations of well, do have high expectations of myself and my collaborators, but also of the audience. And I think that all that's required of the audience is to be as open as possible.
Mm.
And I find that from from decades of making of loving a lot of different kinds of music and taking many different approaches to making music, mm, I've found that the fundamentals like of different approaches to making music, like most of the fundamentals distill to common roots. And
Mm.
if I guess that's a mixed metaphor. So
No, it's okay.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Um, I reserve the right to that. But it calls to mind, if I can just go step to the side a little bit, my recent project before this that you're familiar with, Slow
Mm.
Water,
Yeah.
where that is like one extended piece that moves between these eight almost through composed principal pieces that one might consider that in the framing that you've set up here, have like a lot of elements that are like easily comprehensible as far as melodicism and whatnot,
Yeah.
where and then it flows between those and these very conceptually derived, fully spontaneously composed, these liminal flow zones that connect those principal pieces, and those can be quite abstract. And I remember earlier this year, we had a slow water performance, and this musician I know who is, he is in the community that I think you were referencing as far as his musical taste, not, being more like you almost said mainstream, but let's just say it like you
Okay.
would consider, right? Like he's not listening to any real crazy stuff. And he
Yeah.
told me after the show, uh, that first, when we like the first few conceptual pieces that we played that were like more abstract, and he, dissonant at times, and he was like put off by them. But again, with the piece going back and forth between the more, I guess, more accessible, let's say, pieces, and then back to the abstract, like over time he started looking forward to it going back to the, like he started to be attracted like to the more abstract, maybe at times dissonant or less obvious pieces. And that was, I found that so satisfying because I love I love to juxtapose these elements, and you essentially you're curating the material for the audience, and you're saying these things can coexist,
Yeah.
right? These things are all, it's all in the family. And so open yourself, let me help you, let me help open you and create some trust
Yeah.
by presenting something that's a little bit more comprehensible
Yeah.
or like palatable at first, and
Yeah.
then let me stretch you over here. And
Yeah.
the fact that he just explicitly told me that that happened for him
Yeah.
without my prompting it, and
Yeah.
it was super satisfying. And so all that to say, going back to Otherlands, we just had 2 nights we played in New Haven, Connecticut, and Portland, Maine, and we had like audiences that were sort of, I think there was a real range,
Hmm.
in people's listening experience and
Hmm.
habits in there, and we it was like it's this band is really powerful in how it we just like cracked people open.
Yeah. I believe
And I
it.
think it was super powerful. And I think the thing with this is that we there's often too much concern with like the surface level materials, meaning like the notes and how they're interacting, or the harmony, or how like consonant or dissonant it is, or what's going on,
Mhm.
and less focus on or less focus on what's generating that material, like what's coming from underneath, and I believe that ultimately what communicates to an audience has much more to do with the nature of the presence of the artists in the moment of creation than it has to do with the materials that are, on the surface, like the notes and all that stuff. The notes I mean, are endlessly important to me at the same time.
Hmm.
So I'm obsessive about all of these aspects, but um, and all that stuff has to be together at a high level for this stuff to communicate on a high level. But given all of that, I think there's, by worrying about how the music's going to reach people, by focusing on that stuff like dissonance versus consonance, I think we're asking the wrong question in a way. Or let's say in my experience, that stuff is not as important. What's important is like the spiritual aspect, and people feeling the process that we're going through,
Mm,
and actually the fa- and feeling the fact that they're part of that process,
mm,
that it's like, so there's a, with the right group, and this is one of those groups that has this. It's like there's this, that opening that I was talking about, and that sort of trajectory towards, like, ideally towards ego dissolution, and like this sort of unveiling the underlying unity of all of us. That's what the art is offering, right? And we're doing that through instruments and with musical materials, but the experience and the process is, there's all of that stuff going on underneath. And I think when that is actually happening, that's what grabs people. And like the surface level stuff is less relevant.
zeroing in a little bit more on the lack of ego in a sort of in a kind of technical sense that there isn't the lack of soloing in your band. I mean, we didn't actually talk about this explicitly, but it seems to be the case to me that and it's one of the things that Darius brings, which is so kind of surprising to me, or it's you just sort of have to like it's hard to understand why it's working the way it does. That somebody who is, as we talked about at the beginning, who he doesn't always play this way, but it's definitely one of his things is to come in just sort of full bore,
Yeah,
and yet that never seems to dominate the stage ever. I mean, it's really sort of uncanny.
yeah,
It's like no, it's taking its place with these other things that are happening,
yeah.
and you guys are together, and it's very clear he's never like pushing you around or sweeping you aside, even though
No.
if you just sort of looked at his sound without, any
Yeah.
understanding of how it was operating with the rest, you might think that that's what was happening. Uh,
Yeah, because it's bracing.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, was it hard to get to this sort of place where, I mean, where you're not only in a band that is ready, that is oriented around not having a plan and starting, really starting from that moment whenever you start, to also not sort of saying, hey, you haven't played out that much, why don't you like, like not having that kind of, because it almost feels like I mean, from jazz, it's like a little bit of a social. I mean, I guess with three people, it really isn't that it's kind of everybody's going to be heard probably, but you sort of feel like after a while somebody needs their chance to like kind of do their thing for a while, right? And that just doesn't seem to be something that you guys need to think about or that comes up. It's just like the music is guiding you, and you're in it together, and you're all taking responsibility for it together and credit together.
Yeah, no, we're composing and orchestrating together, and yeah, building these worlds together always. It's always collective. And I would say, I think that's a really helpful. I always encourage uh, my students and other musicians who are interested in hearing from me, to in like unorthodox configurations that like especially duos or trios, like small ensembles, it's easier to get to as a practice, but put themselves in contexts that shake up the traditional notions of the role that their instrument is normally expected to play in more traditional contexts, because it sort of it pushes you to think beyond the sort of the narrow um, view of that of those expectations that we develop, and simply ask yourself moment to moment, like, what does this music need from me? What do I feel is right to offer in this moment, over and over again? Regardless of what your instrument is, I might feel like, oh, this music needs like a high melody and no one's doing it, so here I go. Or maybe, there could be some times where I'm like grooving like I would in, some like in a more expected way, but or anywhere in between. But it's yeah, it's always collect. Oh, so what I was what I wanted to say was, it can be helpful for people to experience that, because it's an expansive experience where you're pushing out the walls of possibility, and then it makes you stronger and more expansive when you go back to those more traditional environments, and hopefully it opens up it unveils the underlying truth that I think that gets missed with a lot of musicians who are, playing jazz and role playing and sort of taking turns, and, let me do my thing, you do your thing.
Mm.
That, like, ultimately, even if you're playing on a standard, you're still everyone is fully responsible for composing and orchestrating the music in every moment. So it's better for everyone if in otherwise you're just playing along with something. Otherwise, you're just kind of doing a pastiche of something historical, right? That you're referencing, or you're just like playing along with this imagined form that keeps, looping around, as opposed to inhabiting that song and trying to fully be in the moment with it, and asking that those same questions over and over of like, what is true to me in this moment? What can I give to this song? What can I give to my collaborators? What can I give to the world?
Yeah. Sorry, I've got a cat coming into the picture here. Um,
Nice.
yeah, I keep getting struck about how this, if you have a couple more seconds, I have like one more question to ask.
Sure. Yeah.
I keep getting,
Who's that?
oh, she likes to go up my shoulder. I keep getting struck by how the acting training that I had when I was in my 20s resonates so much with what you're talking about. I wrote an essay about this a couple of months ago where I was just trying to draw some lines between these guys in Massachusetts that I did a month-long intensive training thing with Shakespeare actors. Because this sort of being in the moment, and actors actually have lines that they have to, well, it depends. If they're improvising, then they don't. But if they
Yeah.
if they have lines and they have a part, or if they're doing Shakespeare or something, they have like archaic language and poetry. And
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of what we were doing seemed to be about getting to exactly where you're talking about in terms of being freed from, a role, or being freed from doing a pastiche of some
Yeah.
historical thing, and
Yeah.
being with the other people on stage and the other people in the room from moment to moment, and making the
Yeah.
thing making the thing
Yeah.
honest and truthful, and so much in common. Okay, here's
Oh,
the
let me
yeah,
just, can I just speak to that before you get to
sure.
the, so that to me totally ties back to what I was saying about surface materials versus like the nature of one's presence and the spirit that is actually communicating. Because you've got,
Mm,
when you have these lines, right, that you have to deliver.
hmm
If you're just focusing on the technical delivery of the lines, that that surface information will be communicated, and that's all that's going to get communicated, and the thing's going to be really flat,
yeah,
right? So, but if you find through through practice, if you get to a place where you're able to let go into the moment and be real and communicate something that is honest, mm, then it's going to be coming from a deeper place within you. And that is what's going to communicate through those surface materials, which are those lines.
yeah.
But the shit that makes it moving is the where we're able to get to within ourselves. And that is the communication that really is important.
All right, fantastic. I took you a little bit longer than I said
Cool,
I would.
man.
Stefan, it's been a great pleasure.
Thank you.